All right, this could potentially be, with all due respect to my friends in different places around the world, my favorite episode yet because I can say Bienvenue, Montréal. Comment ça va? Welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Bonjour, merci de m'avoir invité. Thank
Non,
you for inviting me.
c'est mon plaisir. Je dois pratiquer mon français un petit peu, so peut-être
Bravo.
un peu plus tard, but this one I'll have to go for in English, probably. No, Caroline, do you prefer Caroline or Caroline, or does it depend where
Both
you
are fine.
All right, I'll go with Caroline because it sounds much cooler. So, welcome. I'm excited because I am a fellow Montrealais also, and I always love to talk to people back home, even though they bug me that my French is not good anymore and stuff. But with all the impact you make and all the good work you're doing, that's really what I'm super excited about having you on and sharing with the world here. So, the best place to start though would be. And I have to tell men this more than women, because when I ask, tell us about yourself, men inevitably say, this is my title and this is my job and this is what I do. That isn't the question. I want to know a little bit about, are you from Montreal originally? A little bit about family, if you feel comfortable talking about siblings and this and that. Maybe something you've never told anybody and you want to reveal it to the world now. That's always kind of fun too.
That's
So
great.
I know gave you a lot of notice for that one, right? And but share a little bit about who Caroline is.
Sure. So thanks for the question. I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. I lived through the Lebanese Civil War, which lasted 15 years. I was age 7 when it started and 22 when it ended. It kind of gives you an idea of my age. During that period, 8 international moves with my family, so it's been quite complicated. But at age 17, I actually decided to leave Lebanon, stay in Paris. No parents, no money. My parents stayed in Lebanon. It was a very, very difficult period for them to let me go there, especially at such a young age. But I think they knew deep down that whatever happens in Paris, it's going to be better than staying in Lebanon under the bombs. It was very, very difficult for anybody living in Lebanon because it was a civil war. And that honestly was sort of a leap of faith on behalf of my parents. And I think the service that they did to me by saying, we trust you, we believe no matter what your circumstances are, you will always succeed. It kind of gave me this strength and this faith in myself because, my mother used to tell me from age maybe 5, you're a genius. She would always tell me, you're a genius. And you know what? I didn't necessarily believe it, but somehow,
You
if they keep repeating it,
do.
you kind of want to live up to that tale, right? So I did it. I moved to Paris and no money. I think that was the most striking part is that I had to put myself through school and then university and feed myself and find a shelter. And, in Paris, it's really not easy. Anybody who's ever looked for a place to stay, it's very complicated. But, honestly, if I should summarize, Mark, the woman I am today would never be this woman if I hadn't gone through all of that I went through because people what people say of me, it's not going to sound very humble, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's leave humility aside for 2 seconds and just be proud of our accomplishments and of
Right.
who we've, what we've done and who we are. As women, many women tend to, downplay who they are because they don't want people to say, well, who does she think she is? Well, you know what? I'm just going to tell you who I think I am. I think I'm a very resilient woman. I'm brave. I'm courageous. I have come out of my comfort zone more times than, I can count. And that has allowed me today to overcome anything that comes my way. I think that has made me a successful businesswoman and entrepreneur. And I don't have a recipe for success that I can just, write a book about and sell, although I might try. I think part of it is in my DNA, part of it is what I've experienced and I've gone through. So fast forward to today. So gone back and forth between Paris and Beirut and now Montreal for about 30 years. And when I came here, I really thought, especially coming from Lebanon, that this was a society where I was going to see equality at every level and in every sector. And that's what I was looking for, right? It was this distant dream of the Western world that was so equal and fair to women. Well, surprise, it's not at all, at all.
Well, that's
So,
good because they need help.
well, exactly. I honestly, when I came into the corporate world in Canada, I elegantly bulldozered my way through the ranks. And my last job, I was executive vice president of one of the largest medical expertise firms in Canada. So I didn't quite go through the glass ceiling, but I was as close as it can get.
Hmm.
And this is when I founded Women in Governance, celebrating its 15th anniversary this year in 2025.
Cool.
Um, and voila, the rest is history.
Apparently, did you have any siblings?
So I have a brother who's
Hmm.
5 years older who lived here while I, because we came. So to give you the more detailed version of it, during these 15 years of war, there's 4 years that we spent in Montreal between ages 11 and 15.
Mm,
So when I was 15 years old, my parents brought me back to Lebanon, which was a bit of a shock
I bet.
because these are very formative years, right? And I had really become accustomed to the way of life in Canada, and maybe not a secret to the world because a few people know, but not many people know that I was a punk at the time. My hair was this long, full of colors. I had, 10 earrings, and I had to get rid of all that because they were going to kill me over there. So I let my hair grow. I dyed it in only one color. So although, today I'm very much into, big brands and elegance, I was a punk at my teenage years. So that was the rebel in me. So going back to Lebanon was quite a shock.
Yeah, I bet.
He stayed here because he was 5 years older. He was 20, so he never left. He stayed in Canada. But I went to Lebanon again in the war, worst years of the war, and then to Paris, and then back to Montreal many years later.
Well, we're super glad you're alive and well. There's no doubt
Thank
about that.
you.
And I think the punk stuff is great, actually. We need that's when you're supposed to get all that out and enjoy it and imagine, imagination is such a wonderful thing that we don't do enough of these days, not to mention laughter and bring that to the table. And even in business, what a wonderful thing to have in business. And I remember
Creativity, innovation, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I remember during COVID, somebody said, and I thought it was brilliant at the time, this is great. A dog can walk into the Zoom or a kid and no one's upset anymore. And we can talk seriously about things, but don't take ourselves so seriously. And,
exactly.
be there. So, I wish I had my usual hair before that. I used to color it blue too, but I
Oh,
don't.
did you
No,
now?
I didn't. I'm just kidding. But I had ponytails and stuff too. And so trouble is they gave me a headache because I don't know how you girls do it, but because it's so tight. But anyways, you know what I love your energy, by the way. It's fantastic and we need more of that. And one of the things, our firm, Fifth Element, we were founded about 6 years ago launched at UN headquarters, but we launched on International Women's Day, which is another thing that I was interested about what you did. And one of our key elements were women leadership, women empowerment. And our first event ever was in New Delhi, of all places, for young women entrepreneurs to teach them about entrepreneurship. And we've done stuff with women ever since. And my friends kind of make fun of me. I think they're just jealous because, for example, I was just in Davos and I had two tables at a dinner and they were all powerful women that I invited to the tables. And
Amazing.
so,
I got an award in New Delhi in 2018.
what? Wow, how did I miss
Yeah,
you there?
yeah, yeah, amazing. The women are unbelievable over there. What a great culture. I loved it.
It is, and the food's pretty darn good too,
Oh, yes.
in that respect. Well, tell us a little bit about women in governance.
So, Women in Governance originally, when I decided to found it, um, my goal was to support the women who wanted to get into leadership roles, who wanted to advance their careers and sit on boards because the statistics were really alarming. In 2010 in Canada, only 12% of board seats were occupied by women, 12%. So for me, these numbers were really shocking because I did not expect that. Did not expect that. When I did that research and I thought, huh, okay, by the way, it was the same in the US. So when I saw that, I figured, okay, let me organize events, let me organize panel discussions, fireside chats, and let the women see what they, be inspired and want to um, get on a board and want to get the education. We created
Yeah.
a mentoring program, we created a governance training program, and all of these were really geared to supporting the women so that they can attain their objectives. After 7 years of doing that work, we realized that, okay, hang on, women are doing pretty well. They're 60% of university graduates. They're very ambitious. Actually, there are statistics that say that women have an ambition level that is even higher than men. So it's not true that they don't want those jobs. They're
Right.
just not getting them, but it's not because they don't want them. And the reality was, with only 5% at the time of female CEOs, by the way, it's not even double digits here in Canada, and it's, Fortune 500 in the US, it's, I think, maybe 11. I don't even think we're at 12% at this point.
Hmm.
So these are recent numbers, right? So it's just completely crazy. In terms of boards today, it's maybe a quarter of board seats are occupied by women. So we have advanced from the 12% of 2010 to quarter. But I realized that it wasn't really the women that needed to be fixed, but it was the workplace culture. It was companies, organizations that had been built by men, for men, that hadn't evolved. Their policies, the initiatives, they were still doing the same thing, but all of a sudden, they had an influx of women in the past 50 years and nothing changed. And they wouldn't understand why women were not advancing at the same speed as the men. Well, you know what? There are systemic barriers that need to be taken down. And
Absolutely.
for that, organizations need to take the time to look at what they've got and what they don't have, or what they need to get. And so we've built a parity certification. The parity certification is like an ISO. We built it with the support of McKinsey and Company. So something ultra robust, ultra credible, that today more than 150 major organizations have done. I mean, these are companies in the, in the pharma, in the telecom, in education, in mining, in engineering. I mean, you name it, we're everywhere. So we launched in 2017 this parity certification. And the goal was so for these organizations to be able to, first of all, do like some sort of an audit, a self-audit, really. They answer these questions, about 80 questions, on what they do to attract and retain and fairly compensate the women. How many women left your company last year? How many women were promoted last year? And these were metrics that most did not really look at. So doing that exercise allowed them to, first of all, better understand where the gaps are. If you don't measure the gaps, Mark, you're never going to close them. You're never going to be able to influence them. So doing that work and then giving them a detailed report on where they stand, what they could do better, what they need to stop doing, start doing, etc. Benchmarking, recommendations, best practices, and they come back year after year and they measure themselves compared to the year before. And we celebrate them at galas in Montreal and in Toronto. And we're very proud of the unbelievable companies that have enrolled in this process. Actually, we're on Zoom. Zoom video conference is one of the companies that has certified a few years ago.
Very cool. So it's zooming all over the place.
Yeah.
I love that, and I remember experiences. Really quick, I remember one in with Deloitte way back when in Montreal, and it's a even much better company now than it was. But really, this my senior manager, whatever, and who was my boss she had five major clients, and I was on I think two and a half of them, and she got pregnant. Long story short, she got pregnant, and she wanted to come back, and she said, "How about if I just come back for three clients, and you only have to transition two?" And the infamous line was, "Well, we don't do that. You're either in or you're not." And she said, "Well, this doesn't make sense." I even said, and I was a rebel in my first year, even, which was I had a partner tell me I got to cool it on the sarcasm way back then. But I said, this doesn't even make sense business-wise. You're going to lose her instead of just having to transition two clients because the other three won't even notice any difference because she did the same thing with them when she had five working full-time. And they said
Yeah.
no, so she left. And then they had to transition five clients to
Yeah,
different things and all and cost more and everything. Now they wouldn't do that
exactly.
now. Deloitte
That's
wouldn't do that.
short-term vision.
It's stupid, you mean? Actually,
I'm trying to be polite, I'm
I got to take visits to Canada more often so I can get back to being polite or something. It's also interesting because I was just up in Toronto with Ernst& Young brought me up there to talk about how their people can truly be leaders who care and have their clients act that way too because it's good for business.
of
And
course.
so that's why I love what you're doing. I know you're going to want to talk about how Canada's holding off becoming a 51st state or something.
Yes.
I'd almost rather go the other way and talk about what we talked about. How can California and Oregon, Washington, Vermont, Maine, and New York become part of Canada?
We would love to have you. We would be a force to reckon with.
Look,
Um,
can you put a
so
proposal on the table?
yeah, let me work on that. I'm sure we would have a lot of support. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, these are I'm going to call them interesting times. Obviously, and I mean, I'm very vocal on everything that's going on right now on social media, especially on my Facebook, on my public Facebook. And it's funny how sometimes I've got, I've got huge support. People who are following me on my Facebook, they're for the most part completely on board, and they're the ones who would sign off anywhere to join us in Canada, and they're completely, appalled at what's going on. But I also have some who will say things like, mind your own business. But you know what? Nothing happens in the US that is not our business. I mean, we're neighbors, we're partners. If you've got a cold, we're gonna sneeze. That is, that's what's gonna happen. So it's important for us to maintain our good relationships going, but it's also very more important than ever. I've never seen Canadians becoming so patriotic as in the past few months because we feel, a little bit under attack. So I think we are showing who we truly are in terms of our values and standing up for our values. And that reassures me a lot because I know a lot of sister organizations in the US are just disappearing because, everything that has to do with DEI is apparently a bad word now. But here in Canada, I would say, well, there's a few organizations that we look at thinking, okay, you were never in it for the right reasons, you were just in it for the show, and now you figure I don't need to do this. But people don't forget, employees don't forget, and clients don't forget. And if you look at what happened in the US with Target and Costco, where Target just went and well, Costco just went, and that is why is the power of the purse. I mean, people must not forget that women are 80% of buying decision making. For
Right.
crying out loud, you want women on your side. You really, really, really do. So I think what's going on right now is just I think we went too far on the one hand, and this
Right.
is the backlash, but it's going to come down. There's no way we're going to stay in this madness. It's not sustainable what's going on right now. So
Yeah, I'd almost like, sorry to interrupt. There's the good sorry in there. I'm on number two. That you're right. The pendulum always goes, unfortunately, extreme, and then the pendulum can't just go like this. It doesn't work that way. It has to go all the other way, and then goes like that. And I think the conversation should be more about, and I've had a lot of these conversations with women and African Americans, and you name it, that diversity means great different experiences that you have. It means great different backgrounds and ideas and perspectives and imagination. And to be honest, I always brag about Montreal, at least in my experience growing up, that the word diversity actually didn't really come up that much. It was more of, I'd like to taste all your different food. I'd like to try dancing with that doom dance that you did or whatever. At least this was me growing up that was there.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm Jewish and we were hanging out with the Greeks and the Lebanese and doing this
yeah.
and that because it was awesome,
Of
basically.
course.
And that's what should be concentrated on. And I have placed a number of women in positions. In fact, we were fortunate to get the search for the CEO of the National Women's History Museum, which
Amazing.
we put in there. Some of my friends joke with us. They say, "Well, they probably thought you looked good in a skirt. That's why they gave you the search." But that wasn't the reason. We're really good at it. But the point being, most people want to be hired or recognized and whatnot for the good stuff they do, the expertise they have, and
Of
not
course, nobody wants to be a token.
exactly. So I think
But
maybe the
but Mark,
conversation has to lend more towards that's what it's all about, not just worried about the word diversity.
exactly. But Mark, you said one really important thing, which is,
Oh,
you
that
know,
all that I
different
just said one important thing?
among others. But let me just um do some
Sorry.
you use leverage that one thing that you've said, which is diverse perspectives, right? And what does that mean, diverse perspectives? It's not just for the sake of saying, okay, well, we don't see things eye to eye. It's because when, a Jewish man, a Lebanese woman, we're going to talk about a problem. We are going to come up with the best solution because
Right.
your brilliance and my brilliance are different and we're very complementary. So together we'll look at a problem from all facets and I'll go, I didn't see it that way, but that makes sense. And you'll do the same. And together we'll come up with the best solution, the most robust decision, the most innovative solution. And what is that? What is that going to do for any company? That is going to positively impact your bottom line. Because at the end of the day, show me the money. It's all about your financial performance. And you're not going to get that among people who look like each other. They all think the same. They look the same. They have group think, which is super dangerous.
Mhm.
Like a bunch of white men in their 60s talking about threats, risks. You can't manage risk if you don't know anything about cybersecurity, cryptocurrency, e-commerce. Do you have a younger dude or dudette, somebody who's going to come, on the board and tell you about these things, tell you about social media? You don't see the opportunities either. So it's not just gender and origin and religion, it's age, it's
Yeah.
so much more. And I just find it sad that what all research has been demonstrating for so many years, which is diversity brings a better financial performance. Let's just bring it to this. So, what we don't want to be thriving? We don't want our economy to be thriving. Why?
And to
Why?
add to your point, are you familiar with blue zones?
No.
Blue zones are it was a research done by this fellow by the name of Dan Buettner, and he went to places around the world and found out where people lived the longest and they were the happiest, and identified the traits and whatnot. And it certainly was diet and exercise and things you would expect type
Yeah.
of thing. But it was also community, and the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging.
Yeah.
And what is inclusion, if not belonging? I know after a while I went diversity, equity, inclusion, and
And
belonging.
belonging.
But it's
Yes.
kind of all this. Maybe
I
we use
love
too much
that.
words or whatever, but it
Blue
is
zone.
true. Yeah, blue zones. It's brilliant, and it
Love
is
it.
true. And I compare everything to sports because especially hockey,
Yeah.
and sports is life basically. I think,
Yes.
and teams win championships, and people get more excited when they win with a team rather than even if they win with themselves. Parents get more
Absolutely.
excited when their kids are accomplishing stuff, not just theirs, things like that.
Yours.
It's real. And, you know, I saw a movie recently, Kevin Costner, he was a baseball pitcher and and he ended up with relationship issues, but he won a big game and then he went back to his hotel room and there was no one to celebrate it with.
Mm.
And because we crave that, and it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So it's we to your point before, maybe we go too far on both sides, and
Ex-
the majority has to stand up and go for it. Tell me a little bit, by the way, we say in LA that we need to have the audience wanting more so we can do a sequel. So we
Yeah,
managed to do a sequel.
would
But
love that.
tell me a little bit more about in general, and I'd love to do a sequel about what you speak about out there and where you speak in different places around the world. I'm interested to hear that.
Well, I think it's the the era of social media that gives us this door to the world that we would have never been able to access so easily. So, sorry, I've been invited to speak, I mean, literally at the four corners of the planet. Um, I spoke in Dubai, I spoke in Bahrain, I spoke in Saudi Arabia. If you want to talk about more,
Mhm.
Middle Eastern countries, I've spoken in Russia before all of this madness. I spoke in St. Petersburg at the time they had the Eurasian Women's Forum. And anyway, I'm not going to make the list because it's really, really long. I spoke in Japan twice this year. Once in Tokyo a year ago in the last summer, and then in April I spoke in Osaka. And, these are unbelievable experiences because when you do this, yes, you bring your knowledge and you bring your own expertise and experience in North America. And also, I lived in France and I do a lot of work with the French Parliament. So I'm very well aware of their different laws and legislation to support the women. So I speak about that for best practices. Around the world, but I also get to learn so many things every time I go, and sometimes I'm really surprised of what I see. There are societies that are not so surprising because Japan is really probably at the bottom of the barrel. But when I went to Iceland, oh my goodness, these people, they live it, they breathe it. Gender equality is embedded
They
in
are
every
number one. They are number
you.
one for women, Iceland.
But it is not just on paper.
Oh
Mark,
yeah.
you gotta go if you've never been. And I'm talking about blue. They've got the Blue Lagoon, which is like this unbelievable sort of spa, but it's natural, like it's hot water, but it's from the earth. So it's really quite an experience. So that I is something that I love about my job. It's demanding, it's exhausting because people think, oh, it's so glamorous. Yeah, it is. But there are times where, my work doesn't stop. I still need to do my work. I have a team of 15 people that still goes on. Everybody needs something. Got, 150 clients. We need to respond. So that doesn't stop, but I do it. And I always, when I travel, take a couple of days off and to discover where I'm at.
By the
I
way,
do.
that's great. Sorry, there's number four. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
years ago, I remember Oprah Winfrey was interviewed, and she was told that everywhere she goes, this is when I was a teenager or something. Everywhere she goes, she should at least take one day because you think you'll always get back, but you don't know if
but
you're
you
going to get
don't.
back. You can't get back to
No.
all these places.
And I always do that. And my kids are older now. My son is 28 and my daughter is 30. She's a cybersecurity lawyer, by the way.
Wow.
And he's a real estate investor and developer. Anyway, when I got that award in New Delhi, it fell on his 21st birthday. So he came along, and while we were there, of course we went to see the Taj Mahal, and we did, the whole triangle. It was just unbelievable. I took my daughter to Russia, and how lucky was that? I mean, what were the chances that we were going to go to Russia now? So
Probably
we
like
saw, and I
zero.
could exactly, but I can tell you, Moscow is out of the ordinary for sure, but St. Petersburg is more beautiful than Paris and London combined. You've never seen anything like it. So I'm glad, I gave my kids this opportunity because I was a single mom for a good period of their teenage years. So they have had to be very patient with me because I was working late. I had board meetings, I had galas, and then they got involved in a lot of the charity work that I was doing. They got involved, and I think that also gave them an edge, an unbelievable edge, because at age 11 they started being volunteers on the
But
Salvation Army or the Missing Children's Network, etc. And so to
I
to all
think you're,
the
I think there's
I
a
just want to say one last thing real quick, Mark, but to all the single moms out there who
Mhm.
think that they need to give everything up to stay home with their kids, think again, because as long as you give all the love to the children, all the right advice and all the right values, I think they would be not at age, 5 or 7, but as teenagers, they will be very supportive. They'll be admiring what you're doing and bring them along. My kids were coming along to all these things. Everybody thought, oh, this is so cool. And then everybody knew them, and it made their careers that much easier when the time came.
Yeah, I got three boys and we had them. They were going to hockey games when they were in the womb still and, and everything after that. So I kind of get it. Well, there was a study done that kids that have working parents are not worse off than if the parents stayed home type of thing.
Quite
And
the
everybody
contrary.
thought that they would be, but if you set the
Quite
right role modeling and you set the right values and the quality time is done, it's may even be better because they're seeing so many opportunities. So I'm with you 100%. Mind you, if I would have been married to somebody that I could stay home with the kids and she worked and made all the money, I wouldn't
why
necessarily turn
not?
that down either. But just kidding. I think we talked about experiences before. That's the best experiences of any where the kids get to see everything that's out there, good, bad, and otherwise. So great role modeling. I'm going to make you promise that we do at least one sequel on this, but I do want to ask you one thing as the last question here. Famous last words, last question. Um, with everything that's gone on, let's say the last several years in COVID and now and all sorts of stuff, I think I kind of know the answer to this, but what are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
Um, what does COVID have to do with what I'm
I was just
grateful
saying,
for?
it has nothing to do with COVID. I was saying we had
Okay, okay,
a
okay.
year when we have all these things that are happening in our lives. Then just stop for a minute and say what I'm grateful for and what I'm hopeful for.
Well, I'm definitely grateful for the wonderful support that I've always had in my community to succeed. And my community, I'm not talking about the Lebanese community, I'm talking about our society. Um, that I've had unbelievable support that allowed me to do the crazy work that I've been doing. At this, I may be the face of the organization, but there are an amazing team behind me that is cheering me on, that is giving me everything that I need to succeed, and the larger community of clients. So that's what I'm the most grateful for. What I'm the most hopeful for is for our values to remain in the right place and really, really, really for peace, peace, peace. And we are not going in the right direction in this world. So we need to be much more open to have conversations about how we can achieve peace that is going to be in everybody's best interest. We need to live in a world where we are proud, where our children can be proud. And so there are so many things that are under attack right now. So whether it's peace in various geographies, our climate gets me worried, and I'm really worried for our youth, and they need to be able to bring babies in this world. So we need to keep at it, and inclusion, obviously, and doing the right thing and being equitable and not being a bully and all these things that we've taught our kids. Basic. Can we go back to the basic stuff we taught our kids and just live by those values, conduct ourselves accordingly?
Yeah, that's brilliant. When you're playing a sport like a hockey and you're not scoring, you go back to the basics to
Voila.
do it. So right on. Well, I tell you, I'm grateful to have a new friend. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that is so
And that you
sweet.
are a leader who cares. I knew you'd prove it, but I'm also hopeful for the same thing. Congrats on what you've done with your kids and everything. And thanks for being on the series.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.